Hey there, everybody. Thank you so much for taking a few moments to tune in to this video online. We felt here at Faith that it was really important to take some time to talk about the issues that we're seeing in the news and talking about, especially in terms of anti-Black racism. I'm Paul, and Jordan's here with me today. Those of you that are part of our community here at Faith City Church in Halifax know us, but if you're tuning in from somewhere else, we're really glad that you've stopped in to take a listen. Today we're going to talk to one of our community leaders in the African community here in Halifax and at Faith. And so Jordan will introduce her, but we're just excited that you have come by, and we hope that this ends up being a valuable conversation for you.
So we are so glad to be having this conversation today. And joining us, we have Ronke Taiwo. And again, Ronke goes to Faith City Church, and she is originally from Nigeria, where she was a technologist for 17 years. And while she was there, she earned her bachelor's degree in biology and her master's degree in medical microbiology. And she worked there as a researcher in her community for many years. But then Ronke moved to Canada in 1998, and while she was here, she earned her master's degree, or her bachelor's degree, and her master's degree in social work at Dalhousie University. Currently, Ronke serves as the Black Student Advisor at Dalhousie University and the director of the Black Student Advisory Center. And there she does all kinds of work with students, where her main role is to support students of African descent through advocacy, advising, and mentoring. And not only does she do that, she's been doing that for 12 years, but she also works as a social worker as well. And she is a part of many different associations, including the Association of Black Social Workers and the United African Canadian Women's Association. And Ronke is a woman of faith. She attends Faith City Church. She moved here with her husband and her children, 3 children, has 2 grandchildren. And to know Ronke is to love Ronke. So we are so excited to have her today and just engaging in this conversation. So Ronke, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
And really, we just want to jump right into this conversation today about current events of what's happening in our world. Of course, this conversation was precipitated by the murder of George Floyd a few weeks ago, and has really sparked conversation all around prejudice and specifically anti-Black racism. And we know that you must be feeling a lot in this time. So my first question is, Ronke, just how are you feeling, and how are members of your community feeling around this?
Thank you for that question. It's a very, very difficult time now. I'm feeling really deeply sad, a feeling of sadness and anger that this injustice have gone for so long and people are still unable to acknowledge this. It's most painful today, as we all know that George Floyd is being buried today. And it's just unfortunate that this power of racial discrimination has gone for so long. For example, the African Nova Scotian community has gone through this racial and injustice for centuries, and they're still going through it even now, up till 2020, they're still going through it. But I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful, as I know there is strong desire amongst many to do good, to be decent, because there are lots of moral human beings who want to live peaceably.
Absolutely, and rightly so. Your feelings are so justified, and this was really a conversation we should have opened up a long time ago. Like you said, it's been ongoing. One event didn't happen, and now everyone's up in arms about it. This has been going on for a very, very long time. And we did an intro for you, and we mentioned that you are part of the Black Student Advisory Center at DAL, and you're a social worker. So my next question is, how significant is racism in those roles? And I want to preface that question. I know this is a massive thing that we deal with, but in your roles, how does this play out? How do you see it? And how do the people that you work with day to day see this in their lives?
I just want to, first of all, acknowledge that racism is a big word. It is a big word, and it comes in different ways. Racism, there has been systemic racism forever, between the fact that the colonial ways of dealing with Black people in centuries have gone on for a long time, which the African Nova Scotian has experienced for years and centuries. Racism can be subtle. Subtle means that people will, for example, I'll take for example, people don't want you to sit with you in class. They don't want to sit close to you because they don't want to be in the same group to present. Classmates or professors making comments in class that are very disturbing. These are things that students have come to me to express how they felt. But because it's so subtle, there's no way to defend some of these things. People asking you, where do you come from? Touching your hair, not giving you jobs because of your name or accent or color of your skin. So being the only Black in a program that has about more than 100 more white students, people assuming you are not educated enough to qualify for certain positions. So racism is so subtle and it comes in different ways. And these are things that we, all of us, are faced with every day of our lives. And when we talk about this, people don't understand until it happens to you, until you are there. The death of George Floyd has brought people to realize what we have been crying and what people have been saying for decades, for years, about this racial discrimination and indifferences that people have gone through. Not being given the opportunity to reach a great height because you are Black, feeling of loneliness and sometimes losing self-confidence are the impacts that comes from this racial discrimination, the impact on our health and every other things. These are things that we live with every day. And that is why I describing what racism is just enormous. It's a very, very big word. So, but that's all I'm going to say about that. Yeah.
Well, thank you for your openness and honesty with that answer of, yeah, we need to recognize it's an everyday, every moment kind of occurrence. And like you were mentioning, of the murder of George Floyd has kind of called people to rise up and stand with and advocate for, and really called society to not be silent on this, or stop being silent on this. And we've seen that kind of manifest in different ways over the last little bit. We've seen protests, peaceful protests. We've seen prayerful protests. There's been riots. There's been looting. There's all kinds of different ways that people are expressing how they feel about this and standing up for it. So my next question for you is, do you feel like all of those things that are happening the last 2 weeks have their place? Do you think all of those things that people are doing are needed?
I would say peaceful protest has been very effective in influencing politicians and law officials to do the right thing, especially in the case of arresting the police officers responsible for George Floyd's death. As President Barack Obama stated in a recent Twitter post, real change requires a protest to highlight a problem. Violence is never a good thing. From what has been observed on various social media, it is the law enforcement that has perpetrated the violence against persons who are attempting to peacefully protest. There wouldn't have been a protest in the first place if the killing of George Floyd has not happened. This we know has happened several times, not only in the US, but Black youth here in Canada have experienced police brutality over the years as well. Most distant people desire reconciliation. People are protesting because they want to be heard. They want to be assured that the systems are in place to ensure everyone is treated equitably, fairly, and respectfully within those systems, whether it's be educational, political, judicial, or at workplace. That's all we want.
Yeah. And I've heard a lot of people say over the last couple of weeks, it really starts with us. And it really starts, we can't change something unless we acknowledge it. So it really seems like in the last couple of weeks, there's been a lot of acknowledgement in different ways, but this is a beginning, but we need to continue forward not just stop at the acknowledgement, but like you're saying, of working ourselves, in our organizations, whatever we have influence on, and speaking to it in that realm. So yeah, thank you for that answer.
So Ronke, you mentioned in that last answer the word reconciliation, and so I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about reconciliation. And the first question I have for you is that if we were to be reconciled to one another across races, specifically, we're talking about anti-Black racism, so let's talk about that. Like, if we were to be reconciled with the African community where we are, Nova Scotia is where we live. How would things be different? Is the question. And if you want to comment too on how we get there, that would be helpful as well. But yeah, I really want to hear your thoughts on that.
First, we all need to recognize that there is only one race, the human race. The difference in skin is due to the amount of melanin contained therein. Black people have more, others have less. We need to be mindful of the language that we use and stop referencing race. It is divisive. It's very divisive. There should be a reconcilable, fair justice system and respectful policing. There is need for Black persons to feel safe dealing with law enforcement. There should be equity in employment, housing, and financial systems. I think that's the only way that we can get reconciliation done.
And this is quite a personal question, but in your journey, you've talked a little bit about it already. But if we were reconciled to one another, like if things were the way that we would hope, that's a great analogy that we all are the same race. Not even analogy, truth. We all are the same race. So if we lived that way, for you, for Ronke, how would things maybe have looked different at all? Like in your life or in your experience, what would be different?
Well, if we all respect that we are all equal, for me, I think that we shouldn't have to fight for everything. We don't have to do extra to be recognized that we are good in what we know how to do. I don't think that our name matters when we are looking for a job. I don't think our skin matters when we qualify like our classmates who either they have a lesser degree than us and yet they have a bigger position than us. Why is it that in a program of 200 people, you only have one Black or two Black students in the professional program? Why? Why should it be only 2 or 3 or 4 and we are fighting to even get into that program? Why? Why shouldn't people think that, okay, if people are qualified, they should get in? Why? So there's so many things that that needs to change. There's so many things. If we all realize that this body, this human being, we are all made by God.
Yes. So, again, Jordan's already said it, but I really appreciate your honesty today because that helps to bring change, I believe. And, I can sense this isn't anything new, you've been dealing with this for a very long time and your community as well. And so you mentioned God there, and we know that you're a person of faith. I love that about you. I miss that we can't all be together in the same room because when you praise the Lord, it's contagious. It spreads. So I love that about you. But your faith plays a big role in your life. So I'm curious to know, as a Christian woman, and in this conversation for the church, how does Christ and his teachings, how does that help us to get to this place of reconciliation, perhaps maybe helping to lead it or getting there faster than we might otherwise would. But what does that look like for you, your faith and reconciliation?
First of all, no matter what people have done to us, as Christians, we are taught to forgive and expect the best from others. Having faith is a fundamental tenet of the Christianity. Jesus Christ taught us to love one another as he has loved us. A sincere commitment to the practice of self-love first will facilitate authentic, respectful relationship with others. So I believe that no matter what people have done to us in the past, even though it seems so dark all around us, with Christ in our heart, we should forgive and try to move on. And I hope that things will be better if we really from our hearts are able to reconcile through forgiveness.
Wow. It's, we're separated by distance today. We're here interviewing you from the church and it's empty. But I can tell you, as you're speaking those words about forgiveness, I sense the Holy Spirit, the Lord in that. You talk about racism being a big word. What you have just said is the biggest, and I just want to affirm that is an amazing way to speak on this topic, given everything that I can imagine you have endured over the years. So thank you for that. Jordan, I think, has a couple more questions just about your personal journey, and then we'll wrap up. But this is just a really great conversation.
And you may have
Thank you.
somewhat answered that question in your last answer, but just as we wrap up, I just wanted to ask you, so if we go back to your bio, you're from Nigeria and you moved to Canada, and you've kind of already said, yes, when you made that move, you did experience racism, and my question was going to be, how did you persevere through that? And forgiveness must have played a big part in that, but do you have anything else to say on that?
Whew. My journey has been interesting. I came to Canada for the first time in 1995, and it was a tough, really tough. I came to Dal. I already had a master's and I was already a professor, but I came to Dal at that time to do a PhD, but I had to do a master's again. But it was so rough. Rough and tough for me because I was the only Black in my program. And people just at that time were not just giving me the opportunity that I thought I will find. And it became so obvious to the fact that I withdrew. And because I had 3 children back home, and I just said it just does not make sense to me. However, I had a very good research that I brought at that time. The research was on the train sticks that we use, like the roots that we use as train sticks, which are oral hygiene that we use. And I brought in those train sticks as my research at that time. And it was so, the results of the research was so good at that time that my supervisor actually went on to do a patent for it. So when I withdrew to go back, he wanted me to continue this research, which when I went back home, I continued. And 2 years later, I came back to Canada with that. I left. I went back home 1996, and I've always been at Faith since 1995. I've never left Faith. So I went back home 1996, and then came back to Canada July 1st, 1998 to continue this research. At that time, I was sponsored by the United Nations of Nigeria to come back and do this research, to complete this research. And I went back to the house to my supervisor. And however, how I survived, because when I left, when I came back with such determination that I will not allow myself to be pushed around. I came back with even greater determination, focused on my goals, and I knew what I wanted, and I went for it. So within that year that I was doing the research, of course, it was we had paper that was published and things like that. And I thought to myself that working with my supervisor over the years and the research, that he will hire me, but he didn't. That was, he didn't. And I had to fend for myself. I had to, because I knew my family was going to join me. So the only job I got at that time was a personal care. And I had to start that job. Despite the fact that I had all the degrees that I had back from home and that. But with that determination in my heart, I knew that I had to do what I had to do to succeed. So when my family joined me, I didn't have any choice. It took me another 4 years looking for my science job to do, and I was always denied one thing or the other, one excuse or the other. But I knew that being Black, you have to do double the work to get to where you were before. So I worked so hard, and I decided to go back to school. And this going back to school was prompted by the fact that I was working with mentally challenged clients, and I became the manager of the small option home, and I was working with social workers. And I said, if I cannot continue on my line of of being a scientist, then I will have to go on the line of where I am now working. So I went back to Dalhousie. I was working full time. I was going to school full time. I did both my Bachelor of Social Work and Masters of Social Work. But what made me so upset was, at that time, I now have almost 6 degrees, because in between when I was doing my research, I even did counseling. I did 14 courses in counseling skills. I had that, and I had my technology. I have my Bachelor of Biology. I have my Masters in Medical Microbiology. I have my Bachelor in Social Work. I have my Masters in Social Work. And I remember going from different interviews and different interviews. And it came to a point one day during the interview, I had to ask them. I said, is it because I'm Black? What is it that you wanted that I don't have? I have all these experiences, and I'm sure that the questions I'm answering are good. And they kept turning me down. And the man laughed and said, oh, no. But one thing that struck me one day was I had a phone call, and during the phone conversation, they said, oh, you are supposed to come for an interview. But I think the moment that she realized that my name, I don't know whether she thought my name was Spanish or wherever, or whatever she thought. But from my accent, she knew that this is from Africa or somewhere like that. She said, oh, I must have made mistake. I said, oh, you called my house and you mentioned my name, that I have an interview. Now you said, oh, you have made a mistake. So I'm sure that she realized that, okay, this Ronke is not from maybe China or from Russia or wherever. It's African. And I was so upset, very upset. I kept getting the interview because, of course, my resume is filled with so many good things. But I think the moment I sit in front of them or whatever, I just wouldn't get get the job. Fortunately, I got the job at DAL as the Black Student Advisor. And that I was so determined inside me that I will do everything and anything to encourage the students to say that the journey is not easy, but you can do it. If I can do it at my age, you can do it, baby. And I always encourage them to know that no matter what, the road will be rough, but you can't give up. You just can't give up. You just have to determine inside you that you can do it. And I have cried with students. Students have cried with me when they come to me and say, no, I can't do this. I can't go on. I say, baby, you will go on. And I will be on that stage to cheer you up, to say, work it, baby, because you will go on. Because I remember that I finished my Bachelor of Social Work at the age of 50. And if I can do it, still do my master's and still continue to struggle on, baby, you can do it. What do we need to do to get you there? And that is why I am so passionate about my job. I'm so passionate to see that these students succeed no matter what they come across in their life, no matter what. I think the struggle is not just for today, it's still on. I don't know what tomorrow holds. I do not know what tomorrow holds after all this that is happening now, whether there will be a change or whether there won't be a change. All I know is that we all have to determine and know what our goals are and what are the smart plans that I have to achieve those goals. That's my journey.
So Ronke, again, thank you for joining us for the interview. And the answer that you gave us for that last question was, I think we all can learn a lot from what you said. But you are a part of the community here at Faith, and there's many nations represented. Of course, there's a wonderful and vibrant African community represented. But there's other folks, myself, brown and white, and folks from all over the world. And I sense that that people really want to help. They want to do what's right now. But also, we don't want to offend and we don't want to do the wrong thing. So could you help us, by just telling us, what is it that we can really do to help in this time?
The first thing is for allies. Let me call them allies, which means white people or other people who are not like us, should acknowledge that racism exists. And they should also acknowledge their privilege. The privilege they have when sometimes they don't have to feel that if they look for a job, they are going to question their name. They are going to question whether they can hear their accent or not. When the privilege they have that they know that when they enter the store, nobody is going to be thinking that maybe they are coming to steal, or the privilege they have when even those of us who are well educated go somewhere not thinking that they will think we have come to clean, or we are not as high as we believe we are. And to recognize that when they hear people doing what is not right, to speak out, to correct, or to start to teach their children that whether you are Black or white or whatever race that you belong to, that we are all made or created by God. That when your children know right from when they are young, not to treat some people as if they are not equitable with you, then maybe things will change. When to speak out when you feel somebody is saying something that is not right beside you, to correct them. I think that those are the ways that we can change things, first of all, around us, and not to assume what people are not. You have to be sure. You have to give people benefit of doubt and not assume that, oh, that woman is this, oh, that woman must be this or that because of their color. You have to trust and allow people to feel comfortable around you. You know, sometimes people don't know that, for example, if you go to a park, if you don't want anybody to come and sit, you just go and sit somewhere. Sit among them. One by one, they will be standing up and leaving the space. So people have to change all this and love people as if they are your brother, they are your sister, they are your family. If we can do that genuinely from our heart, even within Christian community, there will be a lot of change. And I hope that we will all learn from what is happening now and reflect back and search our hearts, really search our hearts. Do I love others like I love myself? That is a question that nobody can answer for anybody.
Right. Well, yeah, I share in that same hope, and you're right. That is a question that we all need to ask of ourselves. Thank you so much for taking the time to share with us, and I'm sure that this conversation is going to be really helpful for anybody who tunes in to check it out. So thank you so much, Ronke.
Thank you, Ronke. We miss you.
Thank you very much.
And I look forward to the praise dance, Can't wait to see it again.
Thank you.
Have a great afternoon. Thank you.
See you, Ronke.
And you too. Bye.